Okay, it says we are live, but it also says an error occurred. So I am going to turn my volume all the way down and do a little double check, skis, to make sure I am actually live. Looks like I am. Sweet. Okay. I am going to do something a little different for the one person that's on and anyone that's viewing this today. I'm actually going to do a 10-minute sit, meditation sit. So if you are watching this not live, I will provide in the details section some jump aheads, just some kind of, what do you call it, like some markers for timestamps for when this is over. So you can sit with me and do a little kind of prayer, meditation, silence time, drink your coffee, or you can not. And so I'll do that for 10 minutes, and then this is going to be a little different. This is going to be actually version 2 of Amir's topic on truth, and so I will actually be re-talking about it, hoping that the fan doesn't kick on. I'm still working on getting the getting it in my ears and working, kind of troubleshooting that. But got a new hat, got some new glasses, got a new mask for you, and so yeah, do a little sit, and then I'll get going on truth. My friend Ivy just texted me and said she has her YouTube up and she's got 3 videos so far, so excited to see that. Yeah, I was on a little bit of a hiatus with this, and so I'm back today. I was planning on doing a really long sit. I usually do plan on doing a really long sit, and then doing this, but I had some more important things today to tend to and enjoy. Just shot the link to a couple people. So anyways, we do a 10-minute sit, and see how that goes. Let me let Ivy and Blake know that I'm doing a meditation for now. All right. I use Insight Timer for my meditations. Blake said, "Hey boo, love you. Miss you a ton. So I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes and enjoy this silence however you want." Sweet. Alright. Looks like there's still someone watching. So, hope you enjoyed that, whoever it is. My guess is it's probably Blake. Could also be Ivy. So, I'm going to do this a little different one. I've had time to think about this topic, so it's not necessarily top of the head, random, but I'm doing my best to wipe what I had previously talked about clean, and then all the moments since where I've kind of played around with it in my head, so I can try to start afresh. And I've definitely created some sort of an idea on some things I want to say, and talk about how I want to talk about it. So there will be probably some level of spontaneity to it. Hopefully more than not, but this was a topic that is very, very, very important to me, and I wanted to bring a little more intentionality to. So far, sounds like the fan has not kicked in, so that's good. You guys, if I get close enough, you might be able to see what I see. No, it just looks green in my glasses. Oh well. Anyways, the other thing I'm going to do different, I'm actually going to start a new format this time, where I'm going to talk for somewhere around 10 minutes and then pause for probably at least 60 seconds. Part of that is I got feedback from two people that are really dear to my heart, that have been developing a contemplative life for a long time now, longer than I have, and they gave me the same exact feedback, which was very bizarre, that when they watch my videos, they watch for 10 minutes and then they take a break and they move to some kind of contemplative exercise, and then they go on with their day, or they take another 10-minute chunk, and that really stayed with me. And I'm like, you know what, I could just talk about something for 10 minutes, pause, and then go, and it'll give me time to collect myself and move forward and bring even more mindfulness to this activity, and an even slower pace. I know the slow pacedness to it is very intentional. I'd probably go slower if I could, and I'm excited that this will slow it down. But it's kind of this rage against the machine energy to our microwave culture that just wants to get something out of everything so quickly, and what I like to call force the moment instead of let the moment open. So yeah, I'm gonna try on that new format of reflective, spontaneous exploring these topics and see how it goes. This one being truth, Amir's topic, and so the first thing I think I want to talk about when it has to do with truth is I know I kind of expounded on this a lot in the last one, but the way that I've noticed that most of us relate to truth is from an idea, kind of rational perspective. We have our ideas of what truth is, what is true, and a lot of them are actually conventional ideas. They're just ideas that we've created to kind of move along through the world, like that's a good one. It's really important to wear clothes all the time. That's a conventional truth that a lot of people kind of just take as truth. It's not necessarily true. It's kind of helpful, and I think an important truth for humanity in a lot of ways, but it's one that we've came up with and created, and it's super conventional, and it's just an interesting thing we do as humans that other animals don't do. Wear clothes, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's this truth that we've accepted as a culture that's conventional. We have all sorts of these. I would actually still consider religious truth to a huge degree a conventional truth. It's the way that we create meaning, and the way that it's the easiest for us to understand more invisible realities and develop some kind of idealized truth around it. Especially in kind of Western cultures, our God concepts are exactly that. They're concepts. They're mental constructs that we've created, and that we relate to in a really mental way, and that's why most of our religious communities are centered, at least to some degree, around this theological pursuit of God. And so kind of the challenge with that is when I've got my truth that I'm holding on so tightly that I believe is for sure true, and somebody else does, that it creates it can create unnecessary conflict in our relationships, especially this day and age where it seems that there's polarizing truths. This one person has one truth and this person has this truth, and it seems like there's kind of one or two camps present day, and this camp is convinced that this is for sure true, and this camp is convinced that this is for sure true, and unfortunately it keeps them from relating and connecting and identifying any common grounds as humans, working together to do really beautiful things. So this is, I think, one of the problems I've seen in how we relate to truth. I touched on this as well, but my perspective on truth is that if there is a absolute true reality, a real way that things are, at best we have one angle on it, our own lens. We come into the way that we look at and our angle of that reality. Let's say it's an orb, and with all the things that we come into the world with, creating the way that we're positioned to look at that and explore that orb, it is what creates the perspective. And the more we're able to open up to other people's vantage point and perspectives of that reality, the more we'll be able to have more of a full picture of that. And so what I'm not saying is that everyone's truth is true, but that everyone has their own unique vantage point to what is ultimately true. So yeah, let's see, I'll talk about this for this part of it, kind of set everything up for a few more minutes. It's one more thing I want to talk about having to do with truth. I think that a recent journey for me is learning the difference in my own life in what I believe and what I know. And the way that I relate to what I believe is what are the things that I am choosing to consciously believe and trust that seem and resonate as very real for me, or seem like really good ideas of things that are really beneficial to believe in and trust in, things that are constructive and beautiful, and then things that I just know, like they're just so solid to me. And I also have reflected on them being very solid for other people too. And that even those things I hold open to changing. And because if I even the things that I really feel like I know with a lot of certainty, which aren't a lot, but I think if I hold on to them too tightly, I'm not sure that they're true anymore, because I'm just trying to make them true. So there's even a challenge for me to say, like, even these things that are super solid, how certain am I, and why am I so certain about these things? So yeah, and then I'll say the things that I would say are absolute truth. The language that I would use for that is like that truth is just the way that things naturally are. Like this is like this is just the way it is. I'm trying to think of an example real quick. So one thing that I'm fairly certain about is that pretty much everything is in a constant state of change. For sure, everything in the material world, it's pretty obvious to me that even from a scientific perspective, but also from just an observational perspective of the way that I've looked at how things are and the way reality is. It seems like everything's constantly changing. And I'm pretty sure about that. I'm pretty sure that we are in a constant state of change, that the earth is, that space is constantly changing. So I will leave that part there, and we'll sit in silence for a minute. All right. Let's see. Sounds like the fan's kicked in. Whoever is on, if you can shoot me a text, let me know if it's really loud. I've gotta get this thing figured out. I had spent some really good time with one of my dear friends and his husband recently, with Larissa, my girlfriend, and was really excited to meet his husband. And when we started talking, I realized that we had really similar spiritual backgrounds, and he grew up in a culture where it was very normal and natural to hear the voice of God and to hear it for ourselves and for other people, and it was something that he was still actively engaged in, and he even kind of commented to me that this was something that he had felt was a huge part of his life, and a real purpose that he existed was to really kind of get downloads from the divine, and then figure out how to navigate his life and how he kind of translated that truth to other people. That was a really important thing to him, and so I put him on the spot. I always like, if people are pretty aware of their spiritual giftings, which everyone has, and they have a value for it, I typically will try to put a demand on that gift, because one of the things I learn is that, and this is the truth for me because it's always happened, when you put a demand on it, especially out of a place of purity, and you pull on that thing, it grows, it expands for the person, and then we receive a blessing in the process. So I asked him, I said, knowing that he did, any person that we would use the prophetic language, any person who has engaged in prophetic culture and has activated the prophetic in their own life, you can't turn it off. It's always on. And so I knew he had something for me. So I asked him, and his response jump-started this long journey for me over the last, I guess, week or so since then, of re-engaging with my own personal truth and bringing courage and confidence into speaking my truth, even if it makes the situations I'm in uncomfortable. And so this next section, I'm going to talk about speaking my truth and that experience. The first thing I'll say is there was this book that I read a couple years ago. Most of the books I read that are centered around any kind of truth, quote unquote, outside of maybe reading kind of scientific things or, psychology or stuff like that, they're really just centered around the teachings of the Buddha and monastics, monks, and nuns specifically, that are really just mostly monks. Unfortunately, the Buddhist tradition is... no, that's not true. There's a couple nuns that necessarily don't go by nuns. They don't... The reason I didn't think about them is they don't necessarily identify as nuns, but they're female Buddhist monastics. Dhamma is one of them. But it's unfortunately still predominantly heavily influenced by patriarchy. But anyways, so I was reading this one book where a junior monk was reflecting on this teachings that he had received from a senior monk. And my paraphrase is that he basically was asking this monk, how come sometimes when you speak and you talk to us, your tone is harsh, and there seems to be a harshness sometimes. Sometimes it's very kind and gentle, but a lot of these monks, when people talk about them, sometimes their directness can be really felt, especially in their tone, is very harsh. And he said, basically, if I say something and communicate about it and it doesn't land and be heard and received, then I almost feel the effects of it, him being the monk. And so it's important sometimes for him to deliver the content in a way that feels harsh so that it can get in and really be felt, so that it can be received. And I do believe that as we mature in love, especially in our personal relationships, where we have relationships with people that we have a history where they know that we love them, the truest, deepest versions of them, there are times when it is important to give harsh truth, and to give truth in a way that pierces. And this is something that this is kind of a topic that was spoken to me years ago by a mentor, that basically I had this ability to hit at barriers in other people's life until they broke through and they were able to actually see truth and experience it. And if I'm honest, I haven't been moving into that. I've kind of stayed back in how I interact, and wanted to be a little more passive, because I just care too much sometimes what people think of me, or how they experience me, how I feel like they feel about me. Kind of comes into play a little too much in my decisions of how to speak what I see as true. So I've been kind of moving into this journey, especially now that I've got a path where I've been able to really find an inner comfort and an inner refuge within myself, and not need it through other people in an overriding way. It's freed me up to move towards this in a way that's healthy and sustainable. But the one thing I wanted to say is, even when I speak my truth, especially if I'm saying it in a way that's very direct and very matter of fact and has a confident tone to it, I'm really careful that the person that I'm saying it to either already has a maturity where they can weigh it on their own, or I'm going to communicate about it in a way that encourages that person to go and process it on their own. Because what I don't want to do is have that person thinking that my perspective is the right one or the only one. And my goal in speaking that truth and illuminating things the way that I see them is to hopefully help bring goodness and life into that person's life. And so if the result of me speaking those things doesn't end in that fruit, then I either didn't say them in the right time, I didn't say them in the right way, or what I said wasn't true. From my perspective anyways. So here's to imperfectly speaking my truth, and I'll leave that one at that, and wait another minute and then say one more thing. Alright, looks like there's 3 people on. If someone can text me or message and let me know how loud that fan is. It doesn't sound loud to me, but yeah, Blake said not sure what the buzz is. Blake, the buzz is the internal fan in the computer that's cooling it down. I've got a book underneath it, but I don't know how much it's helping. What is it that you love, Blake? You love the fan? Or you love me speaking my truth? Blake just said, love that. I think there's a delay on my video, so he's possibly talking about what I was talking about. Alright, I'm going to hop into the last part, which is basically I'm just going to go through and try to do a quick 9 or so minute run through of Dhamma, which is the truth of the truth as it was communicated through the Buddha and then understood by the Thai forest tradition and then handed to me, and I've read through other traditions, but this is mostly the Thai forest tradition. Really focuses on the Four Noble Truths and everything that kind of branches out of the Four Noble Truths, and so I'm going to go through that and a couple other things, and then briefly say that the first noble truth is kind of suffering is like this. There is an experience of disease, discontent, stress, unsatisfactoriness to life that we experience. And the second noble truth is that we can understand that. We can come to an understanding of it. The fourth noble truth, or the third noble truth, is that there is an end to that. And then the fourth one is the Eightfold Path, which is the end, which is what the Buddha said, laid out as the path to end our own suffering and then help end the suffering of humanity. So the first noble truth, the kind of main teaching around that, is that everything is kind of what I said earlier. Everything is pretty much everything anyways. Definitely in the material realm, it's changing constantly. And the main reason that we suffer is that we want what is in its nature to change to stay the same. And because we relate to these things that are impermanent in a way of either grabbing hold of them and attaching ourselves to them really tightly or pushing them away, we suffer. And so the kind of there's these kind of three ways that he talks about that we relate to experience, either greed, hatred, or delusion. These kind of three mental states that are what's responsible for dukkha, or suffering. And so the greed would be our nature to just, when something good comes, we just want it and we want it all, and we attach ourselves to it. And unfortunately, those things eventually are not great anymore. They change, and so then we suffer. Or hatred, we don't want something to happen. We don't like when we don't have, what's a good one? We aren't able to get our Starbucks in the morning or whatever it is that we like to have in the morning. And something doesn't work out right, and we don't get it. And so we suffer and we feel a certain way about it. And there's even a small amount of hatred down there into a really big thing, And that hatred is kind of the other side of the coin of greed. It's this pushing away. One is grabbing hold, one's pushing away. And then delusion is these things in life that we engage with that keep us from being able to really see clearly. It's the easiest way I know how to explain it. And they dilute our clarity of mind. There's lots of different things that do. So, that kind of, those things that the Buddha talked about as true, there was an inherent teaching in that this isn't just something I'm telling you is true, this is something I'm encouraging you to go out and experience for yourself and have direct insight into the nature of things and the nature of suffering and all of this, and explore it and look at it. And so it's also been a phenomenal lens for me to look at reality and understand so many things that I didn't before, and understand myself. And it's just become a foundational way for me to navigate life that is so true. It's affected the way I've viewed other religious and spiritual truths. And it's helped me tremendously in my relationships. I will say that the fourth noble truth is kind of the most the most dynamic of a explored truth, because there's 8 different path factors, and even within those 8, there's a lot of things to know and understand about them. For example, right effort. Within right effort is one of the parts of the Eightfold Path, one of the 8, and there's so much in right effort. The kind of idea is like, okay, we need to learn to let go and not cling, but then how do we give our efforts in a way that's helpful and constructive? And so there's a whole plethora of things in there. And that's been the most fruitful. It's brought the most peace and joy and health, mental health, emotional health, well-being into my life. And it fills me regularly with gratitude to know that I have found these really unshakable, immovable realities that have helped me navigate and move through the challenge of reality and the challenges of human suffering that are many. And I'm not sharing that with you necessarily at all to promote this. It's just been probably the truest thing that I've come in contact with from a tradition standpoint, from a ideology standpoint. It's been the most fruitful truth that I have ingested and helped me tremendously in my path of discovering my own truth and what is true for me. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. And there was one more thing I wanted to say. I can't remember it. I'll jot it down and say it at the beginning of the next one. Feedback. For the 2 of you that are still on, and anyone, let's see. Thank you, Blake. Yeah, I would love feedback on the content, everything that I shared, perspective differences, things you don't agree with, things you hated, things you loved, things you were mildly indifferent or passionate about, anything in between. And also the format, if that was helpful, if you enjoyed that a little more, any of it, I would love. And you can leave it in the comment section. You can text me individually. But it feels good to be back talking about stuff. It's almost 8:30 now, so I'm about to hop off, eat some food, and then Larissa and I are going to go see a movie at the drive-in theater down the road. We're going to go see Ferris Bueller, I think. So hope y'all have a wonderful evening. Thanks to those who tuned in. And if you listened to this, at least let me know you did. Love ya.